I don't hear it. So, Shalom, welcome to this beautiful study of Genesis chapter. Let me move this out of the way. Chapter 27. I wanted to put here, let me do my slides. Sorry, I'm moving like things out of the way because I'm using a different computer today. Okie dokie. So, yes, like I was saying, this is chapter 27. We are almost halfway. No, actually, no, we are halfway, a little bit more than halfway, because I believe Genesis is 50 chapters. And I know this has taken a long time to go, chapter by chapter. But like I said from the very beginning, um, it's better to do it that way in my opinion than to rush through a lot of chapters at once. I know maybe the first time some of you did the study with me, we were doing 4 or 5 chapters at once. And yes, though it's good because you keep the pace, and at the same time it's good because you are kind of like, well, I don't want to say rushing through it. You're learning still, but it feels like doing chapter by chapter, you learn, you pause more in between the lines, and you read between the lines, and you go into deeper understanding. So, like I said, I don't care if this takes a whole year to finish Genesis. I mean, it won't, but it could take whatever time. But it's for sure at least gonna take 50 weeks. We are in week 27. So I know there's a couple of weeks that we've grouped maybe 2 chapters because one has been more genealogy based, or they kind of go hand in hand and are shorter. And then so we've created more like a lengthier study for that night. But for the most part, it's been literally 1 chapter per week. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's been very edifying and refreshing to do it this way. So let's continue. So, what is this chapter 27 about? Genesis 27, it's about the blessing, the deception, and the sovereignty of our Elohim, the Most High. Genesis 27 is one of the most emotionally complex chapters in Genesis. And I say it like that, and I say it like I wrote it, and I mean it. It is emotionally complex. We're going to see that to the naked eye, this chapter is filled with favoritism, with deception, with manipulation, with fear, grief, and family division. And I know I should have read the chapter first before going straight into the introduction, but I wanted to give you a heads up in case you didn't get to read it. Yes, at first glance, like I said, it may seem like a story about Jacob stealing something that belonged to his brother Esau. Yet, when we step back and view the chapter in light of everything that has come before, we discover something deeper. And like as I always say in every chapter, there's always deeper than what the naked eye can see, right, and comprehend. So here we're going to see the Most High had already declared before the twins were born that the older shall serve the younger. And we saw that in 2 chapters ago, right? In chapter 25. And so now we're going to see the fruition of this in chapter 27. And so the blessing Jacob receives in this chapter does not surprise the Most High. Clearly, he already had declared it, right? It had already been revealed. So what we witness is not the failure of Abba's plan, but the tragic way man's attempt to accomplish divine promises through fleshly methods. And again, this stems back even to our Papa Abraham and Sarah when they saw that the seed of promise wasn't taking any shape or form, and Sarah was just getting older. Well, both of them were just getting older. What do? They tried to kind of manipulate the way the seed would come by inserting Hagar into the picture, her womb, right, into the picture. But we know that the promises of Abba are in his ways and his plans, not in our ways. And so in that same aspect, Isaac also continues, and we already saw that last week in chapter 26 with Abimelech once again. And now in this chapter, we see it now with his sons, right? So every major character in this chapter acts from a place of weakness. And again, we know that it does not take away from their righteousness, the fact that they were, well, the majority of them, I'm not saying all of them were, but the majority of them were actual righteous men and women of Abba, of the Most High. But in that, we also see their weaknesses, right? So in this case, Isaac ignores the prophecy and favors Esau. Rebekah schemes instead of trusting, and we're going to see it now as we read it together. Jacob lies instead of waiting, and Esau seeks a blessing he previously despised. So, yet, despite everyone's failures, the purpose of our Most High moves forward. And that is the key, and that is going to be the goal of this chapter, right? So Genesis 27 becomes a powerful lesson that the promises of our Father are secure, even when his people are not. So keep that in mind. And now we're going to go into reading the chapter. I don't know if one of you wants to read it. It is a longer chapter than the ones, the last few ones we've read. It has, I think, like 40 something verses. So maybe we can actually do it by part. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do the first half, 1 through 29, and then we'll do some connecting precepts and then continue reading. Is anyone that's connected able to read? If not, I'll do it.
I can.
Oh, thank you, Chelsea. So I have it there in case you want to read it from the screen on verses 1 through, yeah, through 29.
Okay. Now it came to pass when Isaac was old and his eyes were so dim that he could not see, that he called Esau his older son and said to him, My son. And he answered him, Here I am. Then he said, Behold, now I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Now therefore, please take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me. And make me savory food such as I love, and bring it to me that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die. Now Rebekah was listening when Isaac spoke to Esau his son, and Esau went to the field to hunt game and bring it. So Rebekah spoke to Jacob her son, saying, Indeed, I heard your father speak to Esau your brother, saying, Bring me game and make me savory food for me, that I may eat it and bless you in the presence of the Most High before my death. Now, therefore, my son, obey my voice according to what I command you. Go now to the flock and bring me from there 2 choice kids of the goats, and I will make savory food from them for your father, such as he loves. Then you shall take it to your father, that he may eat it, and that he may bless you before his death. And Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, Look, Esau, my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth-skinned man. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be a deceiver to him, and I shall bring a curse upon myself and not a blessing. But his mother said to him, Let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice and go, get them for me. And he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and his mother made savory food, such as his father loved. Then Rebekah took the choice clothes of her elder son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And she put the skins of the kids of the goats on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. Then she gave the savory food and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob. So he went to his father and said, My father. And he said, Here I am. Who are you, my son? Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done just as you told me. Please arise, sit and eat of my game, that your soul may bless me. But Isaac said to his son, How is it that you have found it so quickly, my son? And he said, Because the Most High, your Adon, brought it to me. I keep going.
Yes, up to 20, up to 29. Let me just bring it up.
Okay.
Brought it to me. Wait, where was I? What verse did you read?
I'm
Oh,
21.
okay, 20. Okay, so 21.
Then Isaac said to Jacob, Please come near, that I may feel you, my son, whether you are really my son Esau or not. So Jacob went near to Isaac his father, and he felt him and said, The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he did not recognize him, because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands, so he blessed him. Then he said, "Are you really my son, Esau?" And he said, "I am." He said, "Bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's game, so that my soul may bless you." So he brought it near to him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, Come near now and kiss me, my son." And he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his clothing and blessed him and said, Surely the smell of my son is like the smell of a field which the Most High has blessed. Therefore may the Most High give you of the dew of heaven, of the fatness of earth, and plenty of grain and wine. Let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be a master over your brethren, and let your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curse you.
And blessed be, I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, and blessed be those who bless you.
Amen. Okay. So this is the first part of 27. I like to call it a deception. All right, so let's go back. We're gonna connect a few precepts from this portion. So first, we saw on verse 1 that it said, "Now it came to pass when Isaac was old and his eyes were so dim that he could not see." Clearly, we know that he was not only deceived because what's it called, Jacob was, playing the part of Esau, putting in the skins and the hairy things and whatnot, but understand also that physically, Isaac could not see, like he was basically blind, right? So it was easier also to deceive the father. So that is an important observation to bring into play. And so connecting with verse 1, I have Genesis 35:28, just to confirm how old he was around that time. Now, the days of Isaac were 180 years. And I know this is later in chapter 35. Obviously, some other stuff took place in between all that. But just so you have a rough idea, he was well over 100 at the very least when the blessings took place. Genesis 48, verse 10. Now the eyes of Israel were dim with age. And now this is speaking of Jacob, right? So that he could not see. Then Joseph brought them near and he kissed them and embraced them. So a very similar situation happens to Jacob when he goes to bless his children right before he passes away. And then in 1 Samuel 3, verse 2, we also see, "And it came to pass at that time while Eli was lying down in his place, and when his eyes had begun to grow so dim that he could not see." This is Eli, who was a Levite, a priest. And so this is just to bring in different cases where as they would age, and this is something that is even very common in our day to day, like as our grandparents age and, loved ones are just the elderly around us, right? We see that they lose their sight. So it's very common to see that. So connecting with verse 2, "Behold, now I am old. I do not know the day of my death." So this is obviously Isaac acknowledging that he doesn't know when he's going to pass, but he knows that it's coming soon. So that's why he has this urgency to go on and give the blessings, right? In Proverbs 27:1, we see, "Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring forth." So in other words, Isaac knew, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, so let's plan. James 4:14, "Whereas you do not know what will happen tomorrow, for what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little time and then vanishes away." So clearly it is written, it is in scriptures. We are nothing but breath. But I think especially our forefathers, especially Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, them three, and I say them specially because they started the bloodline, right? This covenant line of promises. They understood eternity, and they understood that this life was vanishing away in front of their eyes, and they understood the importance of a blessing to be passed down through the generations. And that's why you see the urgency there. Verse 3, "Now therefore please take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the fields and hunt game for me." We saw something similar a couple weeks ago in Genesis 25, 27 and 28, where it says, so the boys, speaking of Esau and Jacob, by the way, the boys grew, and Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, but Jacob was a mild man dwelling in tents. And Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game. But Rebekah loves Jacob. And I know we spoke a little bit about this when we did the study on chapter 25. But now reading in chapter 27, we see that the reason why Isaac had a special love for Esau, it wasn't anything spiritual. It wasn't something that just, a preference because he was the firstborn. It was because of in the scriptures it says the game he brought for his father, right? But it is basically the appetite of the flesh. He brought him good food, in other words. So his earthly eyes were set on that to have a favorite. So understand off the bat, we can see the flaws even of our forefathers in these little details, right? He loved Esau not because of anything special, but because the desire of his flesh that was being fulfilled by the hunting. Remember, in Genesis 25, we saw from the beginning that Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field. And so, yeah, I just wanted to point that out. In verse 4, where it says, and make me savory food such as I love. And there you see even furthermore the point I'm trying to make. He had this great desire to be fed by his son. It was, and I'm not saying, by the way, that is sinful to desire food. I mean, I think all of us, I speak loudly for myself, I love myself some hot, good food, right? A good game, right? Or the way it's spelled down in scriptures. But the problem with that is not us loving food. It's when we overwrite the spiritual with the desires of the flesh. And that's the point I'm trying to make here. In this case, Isaac placed his love on his son because of the love he had for the savory food his son was always bringing him. And so the blessing was ultimately connected from his end, not on the promise so much of the Most High, but on the things that his eyes could see, his mouth could taste. Does that make sense? Because we see here on verse 4, make me savory food such as I love, and bring it to me that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die. And so the connection here with the blessing was the food, the good food that he loved, that Esau would then bring to him. And I want to make sure that you guys understand something. I'm not by any means trying to bring down our forefathers, right? I'm not trying to say, oh my gosh, how dare they? Like, no way. Like, we don't even come near their level of obedience and righteousness. And I've said it before, we should all look to be even half of the people they were while they existed. And when it comes to their obedience and their surrenderance and their hearts towards our Father. However, it is important for us to also not be oblivious and see that there was none perfect but our Messiah. Okay, understand that. I know there's scriptures that can be brought up later on in the New Testament where it speaks of blameless people, like Joseph, I believe, is considered a blameless man in all his ways. I'm not sure if there was someone else that was depicted as keeping everything that was written in the law and all these things. Understand that even Abraham kept the law, and because he kept the law and the commandments, he was faithfully obedient, right? He was blessed because of his faith. But understand that even them had flaws. And that is the point that I'm trying to bring here. It's not to bring them down. It's not to make them the less of the great examples of faith that we should see them as, but it's for us to really see that there's none perfect but the Son of the Most High. The second Adam, right? None like him. And that is why I believe Messiah, and sorry, I'm going ahead of myself here, but I have to say it now because I think it's very important. The reason why Messiah had to come, there was no other way for us to be saved if not through him, because it is through his holiness that we are then made holy. Like, understand, yes, we can do all these things. Abraham did, Isaac did, Jacob did. but yet we will always have flaws and we will always fall short. We need his holiness and we need his grace in order to endure. On our own strength, we will never, ever be able to do it. Understand that even before Messiah came, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and our forefathers, all of them slept, right? In a place that is called, oh my gosh, Abraham's bosom, but there's another name to it. They were not even resting in paradise, okay? Messiah comes and then the first resurrection occurs where they are literally like transported into a different waiting area. Let's just call it that, until the fulfillment of the second coming and the second resurrection of the dead, right? So understand that up to that point they were resting, but they still did not make it into eternity. Because in order to make it to eternity, we needed Messiah's sacrifice. I hope that that is clear. And that's something that I always like to bring in, because certain people, and I've been through many different Bible studies, and it's not to take away from people's knowledge. I'm grateful for people's knowledge. And again, myself, I haven't figured any, well, not anything, but I haven't figured so many things out. I'm still in a learning process. But something that I can tell you from my experience in this walk is that there's no one that has everything correct. And there's not one person that has the final answer, like that's it, or the perfect example of righteousness. I believe, beginning with even with Abraham, in this life, there's none perfect but our Messiah. Did they do amazing works of obedience and they are to be commended for that? Yes. Absolutely. And we copy their example. But ultimately, like Paul said, we imitate Messiah, or we imitate men as they imitate Messiah. Paul says, imitate me as I imitate Christ, right? It's the same thing. So we grab the good from Isaac in this case, and we discard the not so good, the fleshy sides, right? Sometimes we think of fleshy sides just like the extreme fleshy things, like I don't know, committing adultery or robbing or things like that. But we have to understand that the flesh is the flesh, no matter what. So let's continue. Having said that, so connecting with verse 4, I'm going to read Genesis 25, 27, and 28. No, just kidding. Genesis 27, sorry. Genesis 27, verses 19, 20, 25, 27, and 31. And again, this is from this same chapter. I just want to bring more, I don't know, to see it all together. So Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done just as you told me. Please arise, sit and eat of my game, that your soul may bless me. Verse 25, he said, bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's game, so that my soul may bless you. So he brought it near to him, and he ate. And he brought him wine, and he drank. Verse 27, and he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his clothing, and blessed him, and said, surely the smell of my son is like the smell of a field which the Adon has blessed. He also had made savory food and brought it to his father, and said to his father, let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that your soul may bless me. So that's just a comparison between Jacob and Esau. Obviously, Jacob going, deceiving as Esau, and later on Esau, but they both use the same wording of the blessing being connected with the game that they had hunted and put together. Genesis 48, verse 9, and then 15 through 16. And Joseph said to his father, they are my sons, whom the Most High has given me in this place. And he said, please bring them to me, and I will bless them. And he blessed Joseph and said, the Most High before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has fed me all my life long to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads. Let my name be named upon them, and the name of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. And that's just a comparison of later Jacob himself giving a blessing to the sons of Joseph. We also see in Genesis 49, which, by the way, we all know Joseph is his son. But we will get into that as we start with the 12 tribes. Genesis 49, verse 28. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father spoke to them. And he blessed them, he blessed each one according to his own blessing. So here we see that the blessing is not just for the firstborn. There is a blessing for each and one son, and we'll see it later when Jacob himself blesses all of his sons, right? Deuteronomy 33:1. Now this is the blessing with which Moses, the man of the Most High, blessed the children of Israel before his death. So we see it is a very common thing, and not only common amongst our forefathers, but a very important thing. I would even say more important than prayer itself when it came to the blessing of the children, because they carried so much spiritual weight on their words. Hebrews 11:20. By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. And so here we see that in Hebrews, the author states that he blessed them by faith. Understand that even with the deception that took place, Jacob coming forth as pretending to be his brother, it was by faith that Isaac blessed them, right? I'm like, wait, I'm mixing up the names. Yeah, that their father Isaac blessed them because the blessing was not from them, but it came from the father. And so connecting now, I'm going to go to verse 8. Now, therefore, my son, obey my voice according to what I command you. We see something similar down in the chapter in verse 13. Let me just read it from here. But his mother said to him, let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice and go get them for me. This is later Rebekah, like basically saying like, we're going to see, I put it more in the slides at the end, and we're going to be able to see more like the full picture. But we're going to see that Jacob had some type of, conviction, like, or at the very least, he didn't want to get caught, right? And this trap of pretending to be his brother. But his mother comes in and says, let your curse be on me. But then she says, only obey my voice. So we see a very similar thing between verse 8 with Isaac saying, my son, obey my voice, according to what Rebecca saying, obey my voice according to what I command you. And then later on telling him again, let your curse be on me, only obey my voice. And then we see it on verse 43 later on. With Rebekah again, now therefore, my son, obey my voice, arise, flee to my brother Laban in Haran. So 3 times Rebekah asks Jacob to only obey her voice. Verse 9, where it says, go now to the flock and bring me from their 2 choice kids of the goats, and I will make savory food from them for your father, such as he loves. And I got to give it to Rebecca because, wives, we know our husbands more than anyone else, right? And how to please them. So she came through even more than Esau could have ever come through for Isaac's good hunt, good game, right? So connecting with that verse 9, we see on verse 4, and make me a savory food. This is now when Isaac was asking, right? Make me a savory food such as I love. And so we see that Rebekah knows exactly what he loves. On verse 10, then you shall take it to your father that he may eat it and that he may bless you before his death. Connecting with that verse, we have Genesis 48, verse 16. The angel who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads. Let my name be named upon them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. Again, we had already read this. I just realized that this was the blessing of Jacob to Joseph's boys, and I was connecting it with verse 10 because it is the blessing of the father right before the death. Verse 11, Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, look, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth-skinned man. And we see that when they were born in Genesis 25, verse 25. And the first came out red, he was like a hairy garment all over. So they called his name Esau. So from birth, I don't know if you guys have seen, I think it's especially common in Latins, especially like Latin cultures that stem to like Middle Eastern genes. They're born very hairy. I know my kids, they all kind of look Hindu when they were born, and they were all so hairy, like super thick, black, like that dark, thick hair, and a lot of, they call it lanugo, I believe, all over their bodies. But I can kind of see and envision Esau, even though he was a redhead. I can almost kind of see the hairiness because I experienced it firsthand, and I've seen it a lot in my family. So it's very common, I think, especially with Middle Eastern and a lot of Latin cultures, right? So nothing weird about that. Verse 11. No, not 11, sorry. Verse 12. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be a deceiver to him, and I shall bring a curse on myself and not a blessing. So this is the part where I was saying I see how Jacob at the very least did not want to get caught, doing the wrong thing, right? And he understood because he brings up, I shall bring a curse on myself and not a blessing. So he feared that, right? And so connecting with verse 12, we have Genesis 27:21 through 22. Then Isaac said to Jacob, please come near, that I may feel you, my son, whether you are really my son Esau or not. So here we see, as we just read, that even though Isaac was blind, he had his doubts, right? He was like, are you really my son? I'm not buying it. In verse 22, we see, so Jacob went near to Isaac, his father, and he felt him and said, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. So we see that instead of going from his spiritual senses, he went with his physical senses, right? And the reason why he was deceived and basically fooled is because he went by, okay, I'm touching the hands and they're hairy. So therefore, forget everything else that I'm feeling. Therefore, I will bless you as Jacob. Sorry, I had another connection. Genesis 9:25. Then he said, cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants, he shall be to his brethren. And I bring this one up because I don't know if you guys remember, this is obviously stemming back to Noah and his sons and the whole concept of Canaan and my theory, and anyhow that I shared back then of how I think Canaan came about. And we see how his genealogy and his generations were cursed forever, meaning the Canaanites, and how there is a mixed seed stemming from Canaan, and how, anyway, I don't want to go too deep into it, but understand that I believe there's no coincidences in this, that Jacob receives the blessing and not the curse. And I'm going to get a little bit more into this later on when we get to the slides, but I just want to maybe just keep that in the back of your heads and we'll backtrack to it. So Deuteronomy 27:18. Cursed is the one who makes the blind to wander off the road, and all the people shall say Amen. And that's obviously later on with right before Deuteronomy 28, the blessings and the curses, and understanding that this is what Jacob was fearing. He did not want to be cursed because he wasn't walking, uprightly in that situation. Verse 13. But his mother said to him, once again, let your curse be on me, my son, only obey my voice and go get them for me. Connecting with that verse, Genesis 43:9, I myself will be surety for him. From my hand you shall require him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. And this is, oh my gosh, what, Simeon? I believe it was Simeon or Reuben. It's one of the older ones. I think maybe Reuben. And excuse me if I'm getting it wrong. But this is later on when Joseph basically tricks his brothers, right? Keeps Benjamin from them, and tells them, like, unless you bring me your father, which is obviously Joseph's father, but they don't know it at that point. Unless you bring me back your father, then you won't get your brother back, Benjamin, right? The youngest. And so the brothers go back to Jacob and tell him what happened. And Jacob is like, no, I'm not gonna let what's it called? I already lost Joseph. I'm not gonna lose Benjamin and this and that. And I think this is the part, if I'm not mistaken, I'm mixing it up, but it has to do with that. Like, I myself will be surety for him. This is the part where they're begging. Actually, no, I'm mixing it up. Let me explain it better. This is the part where the brother is begging to take place instead of Benjamin, because he didn't want to take the blame because of what had happened to Joseph. And sorry if I confused you there, but that's why I'm bringing that in there. Sorry. And connecting also with verse 13, we have 1 Samuel 25, verse 24. So she fell at his feet and said, on me, my Adon, on me let this iniquity be, and please let your maidservant speak in your ears and hear the words of your maidservant. And this is later on with David. And this is like, I think it's Abigail when she's begging for her life, basically. And these are just examples of men and women in scriptures when they take the curse upon themselves. Same as in 2 Samuel 14, verse 9. And the woman of Tekoa said to the king, my lord, O king, let the iniquity be on me and on my father's house, and the king and his throne be guiltless. Matthew 27:25, Messiah's word. Well, not Messiah's word, but, and all the people answered and said, his blood be on us and our children. So this is just another example, obviously in Messiah's time and actually in Messiah's crucifixion time. Verse 14. And he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and his mother made savory food such as his father loved. Proverbs 23:3 connects with that. Do not desire his delicacies, for they are deceptive food. And I bring that up because, like I was saying at the beginning, it's not that eating is a sin, okay? I don't want you guys leaving the study saying, oh, Liz said not to talk about good food. And no, not at all. I myself like to eat. What I mean by that is that it's controlling the desires of our flesh. Yes, even if it comes to food, when they rule out or rule over, not rule out, but more like rule over our spiritual hunger. Does that make sense? Which is why it's so important to fast, by the way, to kill our flesh in every way, because one of the things that is harder for us to die to, believe it or not, is hunger. It's food. It's when our body craves water or food. It's very hard to die to that because it's something that we need in order to survive. And our flesh truly dies when you submit it in that way. So we also have Luke 21, verse 34. But take heed to yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, and cares of this life, and that they come on you unexpectedly. Again, lest your hearts be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, and cares of this life. It doesn't necessarily say with food, but and that is included, the cares of this life, the drunkenness, the carousing, right? So don't let your hearts be weighed down by these things, which is what we kind of see weighed down Isaac in this chapter, in chapter 27. Verse 15. Then Rebekah took the choice clothes of her elder son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And we see in verse 27 how that is so. And he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his clothing, meaning of his brother's clothing, and blessed him and said, okay, now we know what the rest says. Verse 16. And she put the skins of the kids of the goats on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. And I want to speak a little bit on the goats because we see some connections later. When Joseph well, he didn't die. But when the brothers told Jacob that Joseph had died, that he was attacked by some wild beast and this and that, they actually brought back his garments that he had, the thing of many colors, what's it called? The robe of many colors that the father had gifted him, and they had put blood from a goat on it to make it look like his own blood. So there is a connection here with goats and with us. And I always think, and it's funny because I think in Joshua 2, it states more details on that, on the goat, or even in the Targums, if I'm not mistaken. But the connection I want to make with us and goats, it's our flesh, which is why I believe the comparison with the goats, the goats go to the left and the lambs, the sheep to the right. And why, by the way, I don't like when they say to people like, you are the goat, because the goat is kind of more like the beast. What do I mean by the beast? Our flesh is the beast. In our flesh, I don't know if you guys know, we have 666 engraved within us. We have 6 electrons, 6 neurons, and 6, like in the atom, right? In chemistry, 6 protons, electrons, and 6 neurons is what you call it. I'm forgetting basic chemistry, but you know what I mean. There is 666 in our composition, in our biological composition, because it's the flesh, which is why we are to be born again. But I just think it's so important to understand that in our flesh is literally the beast. The mark of the beast, I know it might blow people's mind away because people are expecting like a literal mark of a 666. The mark of the beast, we have it. All of us. We just have to die to our flesh in order to be marked by his mark, right? Which is a spiritual mark. The opposite of, the opposite of keeping his commandments is walking in our own desires, the desires of the flesh. And why do I bring this up? Because when we're talking about comparisons here, in the case of Esau, they brought the goat's hairs to compare to the hairs of his skin, right? And then later on, we see the comparison with the blood being poured on the robe of Joseph to compare to the blood. I just don't think it's by coincidence, guys. That's the point I'm trying to make here. I don't think it's a coincidence. Yes, Yasmin is saying, hold on, yes, the tunic. Thank you, Eileen, or Yasmin, for bringing that. Because I was like, what is it? What is it? Okay, so she's saying the blood of goats resembles our blood. Yes, yes, yes. And she said, I was going to say that on the Day of Atonement. Yes, thank you. The scapegoat, there is a connection there. Absolutely. That's another connection because the Day of Atonement has to do with literally atoning for, like literally crucifying our flesh, atoning for everything that has to do of the flesh. And that's why there were 2 goats in the sacrifice, one that was released into the wilderness, right? And one that was sacrificed. There's so many connections there. It blows my mind. I believe in the study we did for Yom Kippur, which is Day of Atonement, we spoke a little bit about, I'm sure. Haven't watched it in a minute, but I'm sure because I'm pretty sure we always bring it up in every study. So if you're curious about it, I'm pretty sure it's still up on YouTube, on my channel. So look it up, and there's so many connections there with the goats. But let's continue because now we're going to go into a whole other topic here. So going back, connecting now with verse 19, Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done just as you told me. Please arise, sit and eat of my game, that your soul may bless me. And here I just wanted to point back to verse 4 where it says, basically, go and make savory food such as I love and bring it to me that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die. And that is literally what he does and what pretends to be his brother. Verse 20. But Isaac said to his son, how is it that you found it so quickly, my son? And he said, because the Adon, your Elohim, brought it to me. By the way, guys, I hate when people romanticize the faulties, the lack of integrity of our forefathers. They romanticize. There's certain people that I've heard saying, our forefathers, they were righteous men and they were perfect. They kept the commandments to the T. Yes, But understand, do not romanticize their flaws, okay? This right here was a straight up 9. Come on. How can you tell your father that it was the Most High who brought it to me when it was, for a fact it was not the Most High, but your mother? Your own mother cooked it, your own mother brought it. So, I mean, can you insert in the spiritual aspect the Most High allowed it? Yes. Can you say something like, yes, it was his perfect plan, so he made it come to pass? Yes, absolutely, you can see that. But for him to say that, there's a huge, huge difference there, okay? So I do like to point that out, because I've heard so many people basically romanticize their flaws and be like, no, 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 that's not, yeah. Well, he did. He lied. So connecting verse 20, and it's not to also condemn him either, by the way. It's not to say that he didn't repent. But I do want to point this out, because for every wrongdoing, whether you repent or not, there is consequences in this life. And that's what I want to point. That's why I like to point at these examples. It's not so much to go and accuse. I'm not the accuser. That's the enemy. Satan is the accuser of the brethren, right? We're not here to accuse and to condemn. We're here to point out things so that we can learn from them. And Romans, Paul states, like that everything that was written for our example. And that includes the bad, the good and the bad. So the wrongdoings, even from the people of Israel, was for us to learn from their mistakes. It's not for us to condemn them and say they were a stiff-necked people, because guess what? We are even stiffer-necker people than they ever were. So, to say that, oh, they were so prideful and so, oh, come on, guys. The whole point of the matter is that we're just as bad, if not worse, and we are to learn of their wrongdoings and their wrong examples, and even more of their good examples. And that's the point I'm trying to make here, that we see some mistakes already that Abraham has done, some mistakes that Isaac has done, and now we see once again some mistakes that Jacob from the beginning is doing, and we're going to later on see the consequence of their mistakes. And in that, do not lose sight of Abba's gracious mercy and gracious love, and how his perfect plan always comes to fruition, whether we deserve it or not. So understand that. Verse 20, you just want to read from connecting with that verse, Genesis 21, verse 25. Then Abraham rebuked Abimelech because of a well of water which Abimelech's servants had seized. And I don't know why I put that one here, but I think I meant to put another verse from chapter 21, including in that, that was a direct, what's it called? I don't want to call it a curse, but something that had happened for Abraham lying, right? So a consequence is the word I'm trying to look for. One of the consequences was the well being seized later on because of his lie. And so we see here Jacob lying, and we're going to see later on a consequence for that. So verse 21, where it says, then Isaac said to Jacob, please come near, that I may feel you, my son, whether you are really my son Esau or not. And just want to show you verse 12 up here. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be a deceiver to him, and I shall bring a curse on myself and not a blessing. So once again, Jacob feared this, right? And Isaac almost perceived it. Where was I again? Verse 21. Yes. Isaac almost perceived him, right? But ultimately he didn't. Verse 23. And he did not recognize him, which is what I was saying. He ultimately didn't. Because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands, so he blessed him. And we have connecting with verse 25, where it says, he said, bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's game, so that my soul may bless you. So he brought it near to him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. Actually, I'm not going to connect that. That's just going through some verses here. So let's go to verse 27. And he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his clothing, and blessed him and said, surely the smell of my son is like the smell of a field, which the Adon has blessed. So connecting with that verse, we have Genesis 29, verse 13. Then it came to pass when Laban heard the report about Jacob his sister's son, that he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. So he told Laban all these things. We also have Song of Solomon 4:11. Your lips, O my spouse, drip as the honeycomb. Honey and milk are under your tongue, and the fragrance of your garments is like a fragrance of Lebanon. And obviously that's written in very metaphorical language, but it's just to point to, it's the same metaphorical language, but it means something, right? And it goes to this prophecy that Hosea, because why? The fragrance of Jacob, right, has to do in prophecy with the fragrance of his people, with Israel. Hosea 14:6. His branches shall spread, his beauty shall be like an olive tree, and his fragrance like Lebanon. So you see the kind of connection I'm trying to make here, because this is about the blessing of Jacob, which is Israel. And the blessing, once again, on verse 27. Surely the smell of my son is like the smell of a field. And yes, you might say, oh, but he meant because he smelled like the field, like he was a hunter, because he was wearing his brother's clothes. I'm just trying to say there's more spiritual implication to this than it might be to the naked eye. So now verse 28 has a few connections with this one. Therefore may the Most High give you of the dew of heaven, of the fatness of the earth, and plenty of grain and wine. Connecting with that, we have Hebrews 11:20. By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. Genesis 27:39. Then Isaac his father answered and said to him, Behold, your dwelling shall be of the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. Deuteronomy 33:13 and 28. And of Joseph he said, Blessed of the Adon is his land, with the precious things of heaven, with the dew and the deep lying beneath. Then Israel shall dwell in safety. The fountain of Jacob alone, in a land of grain and new wine, his heavens shall also drop dew. 2 Samuel 1:21. O mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew nor rain upon you, nor fields or offerings, for the shield of the mighty is cast away there, the shield of Saul not anointed with oil. Psalms 133 verse 3. It is like the dew of Hermon descending upon the mountains of Zion, for there the Adon commanded the blessing, life forevermore. Proverbs 3:20. By his knowledge the depths were broken up, and clouds dropped down the dew. Micah 5:7. Then the remnant of Jacob shall be in the midst of many peoples, like dew from the Adon, like showers on the grass, that tarry for no man, nor wait for the sons of men. Zechariah 8:12. For the seed shall be prosperous, the vine shall give its fruit, the ground shall give her increase, and the heavens shall give their due. I will cause the remnant of his people to possess all these. And again, I'm going to take a quick stop there. All these connections, what it's trying to confirm is the blessing given to Jacob wasn't only for Jacob the son, Jacob the people, meaning Jacob equals Israel, right? And so all of this metaphorical blessings and connections has to do with Israel. Genesis 45:18. Bring your father and your households and come to me. I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you will eat the fat of the land. And this is immediately after they come from their land into Egypt. They're already being blessed there. Numbers 18:12. All the best of the oil, all the best of the new wine and the grain, their first fruits which they offer to the Adon, I have given them to you. Deuteronomy 7:13. And he will love you and bless you and multiply you. He will also bless the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your land, your grain and your new wine and your oil, the increase of the cattle and the offspring of your flock in the land of which he swore to your fathers to give you. And lastly, connecting with that verse, the blessing, Deuteronomy 33:28. Then Israel shall dwell in safety, the fountain of Jacob alone, in a land of grain and new wine, his heavens shall also drop dew. And obviously we know this is the blessing he gives to Jacob, but there is a connection that we later see more clearly throughout the books, specifically in Deuteronomy, that the connection with this blessing, or the blessing is given, right? But the connection with his people actually walking in the fulfilled blessing is connecting to the obedience, right? And we've spoken about this before, but just want to bring a reminder. Because later we do see the curses that come, that befall them for not obeying, which is what Jacob feared from the beginning. I'm scared that I may be cursed instead of blessed. So you see it from the beginning, right? Genesis 27:29, let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be master over your brethren, and let your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be those who bless you. We're going to see so many connections with that. We have Genesis 9:25. Then he said, cursed be Canaan, and servant of servants he shall be to his brethren. Genesis 25:23. And the Adon said to her, two nations are in your womb. Two peoples shall be separated from your body. One people shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. Isaiah 45:14. Thus says the Adon, the labor of Egypt, and merchandise of Cush, and of the Sabaeans, men of stature shall come over you, and they shall be yours. They shall walk behind you. They shall come over in chains, and they shall bow down to you. They will make supplication to you, saying, surely the Most High is in you, and there is no other Elohim. I say, and these are all prophecies, by the way. Isaiah 49:7, another prophecy. Thus says the Adon, the Redeemer of Israel, their Holy One. To him whom man despises, to him whom the nations abhors, to the servants of rulers, kings shall see and arise, princes also shall worship, because of the Adon who is faithful, the Holy One of Israel, and he has chosen you. Isaiah 60:12 and 14. For the nation and kingdom which will not serve you shall perish, and those nations shall be utterly ruined. Also the sons of those who afflicted you shall come bowing to you, and all those who despised you shall prostrate at the soles of your feet, and they shall call you the city of the Adon, Zion, of the Holy One of Israel. And again, this is a prophecy that it hasn't been fully fulfilled. The fulfillment of this prophecy is going to be once we're in the New Jerusalem. But understand that has to do with our redemption, our final redemption. Genesis 37:7 and 10, there we were binding sheaves in the fields. Then behold, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. And indeed, your sheaf stood all around and bowed down to my sheaf. And this is Joseph telling his brothers, older brothers, about his dream, right? So he told it to his father and his brothers, and his father rebuked him and said to him, what is this dream that you have dreamt? Shall your mother and I and your brothers indeed come to bow down to the earth before you? Obviously, Jacob not understanding that truly that would be so, and is part of the fulfillment, right? Genesis 49:8. Judah, you are he whom your brothers shall praise. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's children shall bow down before you. And this is later the blessing that Jacob himself gives to his son Judah. Genesis 12:2-3. I will make you a great nation. This is a promise to Abraham once again. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. And in you, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. And so we see once again that this blessing that Isaac is given to Jacob, it goes within the promise that's initiated with Abraham. Zephaniah 2, another prophecy, verses 8 and 9. I have heard the reproach of Moab and the insults of the people of Ammon, with which they have reproached my people and made arrogant threats against their borders. Therefore, as I live, says the Adon of hosts, the God of Israel, surely Moab shall be like Sodom, and the people of Ammon like Gomorrah, overrun with weeds and salt pits, and a perpetual desolation. The residue of my people shall plunder them, and the remnant of my people shall possess them. Lastly, we have Numbers 24 and 9. He bows down, he lies down as a lion, and as a lion, who shall rouse him? Blessed is he who blesses you, and cursed is he who curses you. And this is speaking obviously to Israel. And lastly, a connection with that same verse we have in Apocrypha. It's in the book of Tobit, chapter 13, verse 12. Cursed are all those who hate you. Blessed forever will be all who love you. So Obviously, there's more to that prophecy, but just wanted to bring it also from the Apocrypha. Um, and then from this section, we connected all the precepts. So now we have the next section, which is verses 30 all the way to 46. I don't know, Chelsea, if you could still read.
Sorry, I couldn't find the mute button. Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Okay. Now it happened as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had scarcely gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. He also had made savory food and brought it to his father, and said to his father, "Let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that your soul may bless me." And his father Isaac said to him, "Who are you?" And so he said, "I am your son, your firstborn, Esau." Then Isaac trembled exceedingly and said, "Who? Where is the one who hunted game and brought it to me? I ate all of it before you came, and I have blessed him, and indeed he shall be blessed." When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried an exceedingly great and bitter cry, and said to his father, "Bless me, O my father." But he said, "Your brother came with deceit and has taken away your blessing." And Esau said, "Is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and now look, he has taken away my blessing." And he said, "Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" Then Isaac answered and said to Esau, "Indeed, I have made him your master, and all his brethren I have given to him as servants. With grain and wine I have sustained him. What shall I do now for you, my son?" And Esau said to his father, "Have you only one blessing, my father? Bless me also, O my father." And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Then Isaac his father answered and said to him, "Behold, your dwelling shall be of the fatness of the earth, and to the dew of heaven from above. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. And it shall come to pass when you become restless, that you shall break his yoke from your neck." So Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing with which his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, "The days of mourning for my father are at hand, and I will kill my brother Jacob." And the words of Esau her older son, were told to Rebekah. So she sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said to him, "Surely your brother Esau comforts himself concerning you by intending to kill you. Now, therefore, my son, obey my voice. Arise, flee to my brother Laban in Haran, and stay with him a few days until your brother's fury turns away. Until your brother's anger turns away from you and he forgets what you have done to him, then I will send and bring you from there. Why should I be braved also of you both in one day?" And Rebekah said to Isaac, "I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. And Jacob takes a wife of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob takes a wife of the daughters of Heth, like those who are the daughters of the land, what good will my life be to me?"
Okay. Thank you, Chelsea. So we're going to connect a few more verses here. Um, we see the drama unfolding right off the bat. Verse 31. Right when he starts, right when he comes back, right? It says here, he also made savory food and brought it to his father and said to his father, "Let my father rise to eat of his son's game, that your soul may bless me." So automatically he's searching for that blessing, right? He's looking for that. We have verse 33 where it says, "Then Isaac trembled exceedingly and said, Who? Where is the one who hunted game and brought it to me? I ate all of it before you came, and I have blessed him, and indeed he shall be blessed." Number one, understand that the words of those blessings were irrevocable. Like they couldn't just undo it. Like, okay, just you told him now, tell me the same thing, right? Like they understood the weight that it carried in eternity. And so he's freaking out. He's like, who did I do this to? You know? Connecting with verse 33, we have Genesis 25, verse 23. And the Adon said to her, yes, two nations are in your womb, two peoples shall be separated from your body. One people shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. And I want to always bring back the prophecy that was given by the Adon himself from the beginning, understanding that Isaac knew this. And that's the part I was trying to say before. He knew this prophecy. Clearly, he knew there were two peoples that were to be separated within the womb, meaning two nations. There was the son that came first and the son that came second, even though they were twins. And he knew from the get-go that the Adon had declared that the older shall serve the younger. But again, I believe Isaac's discernment had perhaps dimmed down a little, the same way his eyesight, his physical eyesight had dimmed, right? He was blind at that time, physically blind. But there was also a level of discernment that wasn't on edge because of the fact that he was seeking more the desires of the food, right? So connecting with that, we also have Genesis 28, 3 and 4. May the Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and multiply you, that you may be an assembly of peoples, and give you the blessing of Abraham to you and your descendants with you, that you may inherit the land in which you are a stranger, with God, which God gave to Abraham. And so we see it's the same blessing being passed down from Abraham down to Jacob. Excuse me. And also we have, connecting with that, Numbers 23, verse 20, behold, I have received a command to bless. He has blessed and I cannot reverse it. And that's obviously later on in the times of Moses, but understand that these blessings could not be reversed. Romans 11:29. This is later in the New Testament, Paul speaking. For the gifts and the calling of the Most High are irrevocable. Hebrews 12:17. For you know that afterward, when he wanted to inherit the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no place for repentance, though he sought it diligently with tears. And I know we read this before when we were talking about the when he sold his birthright, right? When Esau had sold his birthright to Jacob. Now that he's actually seeing the actual blessings take place, now he wants the blessing that he had once rejected. Because understand, yes, it's true, Jacob did deceive his brother, but remember, Esau had also sold his birthright. He had despised his birthright for the same exact thing that was blinding Isaac in this moment, which was food, right? The pleasure of the flesh. He was hungry at the time, and he said, what good is a birthright to me in this moment? Because I am basically as good as dead if I don't eat. And so he gave it up for a bowl of lentils, basically. And so that's why the author of Hebrews states that when he wanted, meaning at this point, when he wanted to inherit the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no place for repentance. Even though he cried, we see it in verse 20, clearly in verse 20, what was it, 33, right? No, not 33. It was, well, later on, we saw him crying, saying, no, bless me. How could you do this to me? He fought it diligently, but understand he had already despised the blessing from beforehand. We also have connecting, with verse 34, actually, when Esau heard the words of his father, he cried. Oh, that's the verse I says he cried. Okay. He cried with an exceedingly great and bitter cry. So he wasn't just like a few tears dropping down his cheeks. No, he was screaming, livid, and said to his father, bless me also. Like I can kind of picture a brat, like a desperate just person, like demanding a blessing, and connecting with verse 34. We have Hebrews 12:17. Oh, I had already read it. Never mind. Yes, I had already read it. So going back to verse 36, And Esau said, is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has supplanted me these two times. Interestingly, remember how he was born, grabbing onto the heel, right? It was like determined from the beginning, guys. So he took away my birthright, and now look, he has taken away my blessing. And he said, have you not reserved a blessing for me? So connecting with that, we have Genesis 25, verse 26, 32, and 34. Afterward, his brother came out, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel. So his name was called Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. And Esau said, look, I am about to die. So what is this birthright to me? And in verse 34, and Jacob gave Esau bread and a stew of lentils. Then he ate and drank, arose, and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright, which is exactly what I was saying before. Sylvia is stating something very true. She said, he only wanted it for power, not for glory of Abba. Absolutely. It was more that instant gratification, that kind of like that pride that sadly we all have within us, that, I'm the oldest, I just, more that position status type thing than anything else. It had nothing to do with eternity. Remember, he had despised it for something so perishable, like a bowl of lentils, right? So good observation there. Verse 37, where it says, then Isaac answered and said to Esau, indeed, I have made him your master, and all his brethren I have given to him as servants. With grain and wine I have sustained him. What shall I do for you now, my son? So we have, connecting with that, 2 Samuel 8:14. He also put garrisons in Edom. Throughout all Edom, he put garrisons, and all the Edomites became David's servants. And the Adon preserved David wherever he went. Understand that Esau equals Edom. Okay? Whenever you see the Edomites, wherever you see Edom, those are the descendants of Esau. And clearly, David is a descendant of Jacob. So the Adon preserved David wherever he went. And once again, and all the Edomites became David's servants. We also see, and in this same chapter 27, verses 28 and 29, therefore may the Adon give you of the dew of heaven, of the fatness of the earth, and plenty of grain and wine. Let peoples serve you, and nations bow down to you. Be master over your brethren, and let your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be those who bless you. And we read already all the connections of those two verses, right? Connecting also with verse 40, by your sword, verse 39, then Isaac his father answered and said to him, behold, your dwelling shall be of the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. And connecting with that, we have Hebrews 12:17. No, Hebrews 11:20, sorry. Hebrews 11:20. By faith Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. And I say once again by faith because his discernment wasn't sharp at that time. But by faith he truly did bless them according to the promise. And now back to verse 40. By your sword you shall live. And that's literally about how the Edomites live and all their descendants, right? And you shall serve your brother. And it shall come to pass when you become restless that you shall break his yoke from your neck. Now check this out. We have a few connections here. Genesis 25, verse 23. And the Adon said to her, once again, I'm not going to read that one because it's about how one shall be one people shall be stronger than the other one, and the younger shall serve the older, right? So 2 Samuel 8:14. He also put garrisons. Oh, we have read that one. Okay, Obadiah, which speaks a lot about Edom. This one chapter of this, well, the whole book is one chapter. But Obadiah, a prophet, right? Verses 18 and 20. The house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, but the house of Esau shall be stubble. They shall kindle them and devour them, and no survivor shall remain of the house of Esau, for the Adon has spoken. Understand, this is an end-time prophecy, by the way, guys. Verse 20, And the captives of this host of the children of Israel shall possess the land of the Canaanites as far as Zarephath. The captives of Jerusalem who are in Sephar shall possess the cities of the south. And it is a twofold prophecy, because partly it was fulfilled, but partly it hasn't, because it carries spiritual weight. And remember, it stems back to Jacob he loved, and Esau he hated. 2 Kings 8:20 and 22. In his days, Edom revolted against Judah's authority and made a king over themselves. So Joram went to Zair and all his chariots with him. Then he rose by night and attacked the Edomites who had surrounded him and the captains of the chariots. And the troops fled to their tents. Thus Edom has been in revolt against Judah's authority to this day. And Libnah revolted at that time. Connecting with verse 41. So Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing with which his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. Connecting with that, Genesis 26:27. And Isaac said to them, why have you come to me, since you hate me and have sent me away from you? Genesis 32, 3 and 11. Then Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. And he commanded them, saying, speak thus to my lord Esau. Thus your servant Jacob says, I have dwelt with Laban and stayed there until now. I have oxen, donkeys, flocks, and male and female servants, and I have sent to tell my lord that I may find favor in your sight. Then the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, we came to your brother Esau, and he also is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him. So Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that were with him and the flocks and the herds and camels in 2 companies. And he said, if Esau comes to the one company and attacks it, then the other company which is left will escape. Then Jacob said, O Elohim of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, and the Most High, who said to me, return to your country and to your family, and I will deal well with you. I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies and of all the truth which you have shown your servant. For I crossed over this Jordan with my staff, and now I have become 2 companies. Deliver me, I pray, from the hands of my brother, from the hands of Esau, for I fear him, lest he come and attack me and the mother with the children. So see here the fulfillment of that exact same thing that he had initiated, the division, the striving between the blessings. But something that is very important to see, the distinction between Esau and Jacob. Esau was filled with hatred in his heart. Jacob, it doesn't matter the imperfections that he had and the flaws that he had. He always had a heart that was surrendered. He was willing to see his brother and seek reconciliation. And in not only that, but where is it? In verse 9? No, in verse 10, he surely shows his heart. I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies and of all the truth with which you have shown your servant. And then he continues to ask, but please, I pray that you deliver me. And so we just see the heart and we see the distinctions here. So that is obviously something that is very important to notate from the beginning. The distinction from the 2 nations are in one womb, right? And a distinct 2 peoples, right? One that goes after the heart of the Father and one that doesn't. Verse 42, where it says, and the words of Esau, her older son, were told to Rebekah. So she sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said to him, surely your brother Esau comforts himself concerning you by intending to kill you. So we see another, once again, a repetition of something very similar that had already happened, and it's the envy between Cain and his brother Abel. In Psalms 64, by the way, I forgot to read the connections for verse 41. But you know what? I'm just going to read from connecting with verse 41, Obadiah, once again, verse 10. For violence against your brother Jacob, shame shall cover you, and you shall be cut off forever. I'll also read the prophecy from Amos, chapter 1, verse 11. Thus says the Adon, for 3 transgressions of Edom, and for 4, I will not turn away its punishment, because he pursued his brother with the sword, and cast off all pity. His anger tore perpetually, and he kept his wrath forever. So see, that's a distinction I was telling you. Edom, which is Esau, had hatred in his heart. So there's a clear distinction with the nations there, right? Now connecting with verse 42, like I just read, Psalm 64, verse 5. They encourage themselves in an evil matter. They talk of laying snares secretly. They say, who will see them? Now connecting with verse 43. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice. Arise, flee to my brother Laban in Haran. And we're going to see who this brother Laban was. We already have read about him in chapter 11, verse 31. And Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, his son's Abram's wife, and they went out with them from Ur of the Chaldeans to go to the land of Canaan, and they came to Haran and dwelt there. So we see that this Laban, son of Haran, is actually relative of Abraham. Genesis 25:20, Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah as wife, the daughter of Bethuel, the Syrian of Paddan Aram, the sister of Laban. So we see that Laban is confirming there the brother of Rebekah, which is where she is sending Jacob to find a wife. Genesis 28, verses 2 and 5, arise, go to Paddan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take yourself a wife from there of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. So Isaac sent Jacob away and went to Paddan Aram to Laban, the son of Bethuel, the Syrian, the brother of Rebekah, the mother of Jacob and Esau. We see in verse 44, and stay with him a few days until your brother turns away. And we're going to see, until your brother's fury turns away. And we're going to see when this happens is later on in Genesis 31:41. Thus I have been in your house 20 years. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters, etc., etc. So 20 years he stayed away from his brother, by the way. Verse 45, until your brother's anger turns away from you and he forgets what you have done to him, then I will send you and bring you from there. Why should I be bereaved also of you both in one day? So we see in 2 Samuel 14, verse 7. And now the whole family has risen up against your maidservant, and they said, deliver him who struck his brother, that we may execute him for the life of his brother whom he killed. And we will destroy the heir also. So they would extinguish my ember that is left, and leave to my husband neither name nor remnant on the earth. And that's later on with David and his really messed up sons, but we'll get into that later. And lastly, connecting with the very last verse, and Rebekah said to Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. And we know that these were Canaanite women that we saw last week that Esau had married, right? So if Jacob takes a wife of the daughters of Heth, like these who are the daughters of the land, what good will my life be to me? Because we remember last week we ended the chapter saying that they brought great grief to Rebekah, the wives of Esau. And just to recap, Genesis 26:34 through 35. When Esau was 40 years old, he took his wives, Judith, the daughter of Beeri the Hittite, the Basemath of the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and they were a grief of mind to Isaac and Rebekah. So to both of them, they were a grief. Genesis 28:8, and also Esau saw that the daughters of Canaan did not please his father Isaac. And lastly, Genesis 24:3, and I will make you swear by the Adon, the Elohim of heaven and the Elohim of the earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I dwell. And so Dorothy is saying, she has a question. She's saying, which area of the world do you think fits the description of Esau's dwelling? The description is very cryptic. Okay, so, what we've been taught all along is that Esau, the Edomites, are like in the Middle East area. But then again, honestly, sis, like I don't know, because I'll tell you this much. So the maps have all been messed around with. And I believe even history, like it's his story, all the geographical points, the color of the skin, everything has been, you know, just they've messed up everything for us, right? And I don't believe anything anymore. I believe that I just believe that when the word says there's two nations, two peoples, it's more of a spiritual thing, not so much a bloodline thing at this point, even though, yes, physically there are two seeds from the beginning, distinct seeds, one that comes from the tree of life directly, meaning from Messiah, and one that came mixed with the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is Satan himself. So those two seeds spread out, and it's always been a battle between those two seeds, and I believe somehow Edomites stem back because of the mixing, right? Clearly, we see how Esau marries from the Canaanite women and bears children with them, and clearly for creating them and mixing of the seeds. So, in the physical sense, the mixing of the seeds have continued from the beginning. And so I know that that's why, in a sense, we say the Edomites are hated by the Most High. Now, to say where they are, I believe at this point, spiritually, they're everywhere. Now, land-wise, if you guys have a better understanding on it, I welcome it. And yeah. Um, but yeah, I know there's huge debates with the Edomites being the white man, and and obviously Israel being, the African descent or whatnot. But again, it's more than a skin color at this point. You know what I mean? And more than even a geographical location, even though in the scriptures it gives the geographical location, but I don't think it's the geographical location that we're being taught it is. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. But that's what I believe in now. That's a good question. But let's sum everything up. I just have a few slides, not too many. It's a long chapter, so let's sum it up as best as I can so that you guys can see the full picture now together. So verses 1 through 2, we see Isaac's weakness and human uncertainty. Isaac is now old and his eyesight is fading. This detail reminds us of Jacob's blindness later in life, which we read in Genesis 48, and Eli's failing eyesight before Israel's spiritual decline, which we read in 1 Samuel 3:2. And I forgot to add that point when we read about Eli, that his eyesight failed him right before Israel's spiritual decline, right? So the physical blindness in scriptures often symbolizes an inability to perceive what the Most High is doing. Isaac says, I know not the day of my death. This echoes Proverbs 27:1, boast not thyself of tomorrow, and James 4:14, for what is your life if it's even a vapor. So ironically, Isaac believes death is near, yet he will live many more years. Genesis 35:28, we see that. His fear of dying causes him to act prematurely. So that's another thing that is worth pointing out, right? From verses 3 to 4, favoritism produces division. Earlier, we learned that Isaac loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. This favoritism now bears fruit, and Isaac privately attempts to give Esau the covenant blessing. Notice something important. Isaac never calls Jacob. He appears determined to bless Esau despite knowing the prophecy spoken before their birth, which we read in Genesis 25. So this is something clearly that was given to Rebekah herself. But please tell me that Isaac did not know the prophecy. Of course he knew it. It was just a matter of kind of like forgetting, right? And so in verse 4, we see that the blessing has more weight than a prayer. In scripture, patriarchal blessings, like I said before, were not merely good wishes. They were prophetic declarations concerning future generations. In Hebrews 11:20, it says that by faith Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. So even though Isaac does not fully understand what is happening, the Most High uses his words prophetically. This blessing will ultimately shape the destiny of the nations. So two nations, that were in Rebekah's womb. By the way, I put this image in the middle here because that's literally what it felt like with the patriarchal blessings, like live pre-patriarchal blessing and then live post-patriarchal blessing. It's like they became Superman. I know it's supposed to be funny, but whatever. Next slide. So Rebekah's plan and Jacob's fear. So this is summing up verses 8 through 13. Rebekah overhears Isaac's plan and immediately begins her own. Notice Jacob's concern. He is not troubled by the deception itself. He fears getting caught, and perhaps my father will feel me, right? This reveals a heart willing to participate as long as the consequences can be avoided. Rebekah responds, "Upon me be your curse, my son." And this language appears elsewhere when people attempt to bear responsibility for another. Her words show the depth of her determination, but also her lack of trust. The Most High already promised Jacob would inherit the covenant. Rebekah did not need deception to accomplish what heaven had already decreed, and especially because it was decreed upon her firsthand when she went to Shem, right? So goat skins and the pattern of deception. I know we addressed it already, but summing it up, Jacob dresses in Esau's garments and covers himself with goat skins. This creates one of Genesis' most fascinating literary connections. In Genesis 27, Jacob deceives his father using Esau's clothing using a goat. And in Genesis 37, Jacob's sons deceive him using Joseph's clothing using a goat. So in Genesis 37:32, they bring Joseph's blood-stained coat and ask Jacob to identify it. The deceiver eventually experiences the same kind of deception he once practiced. And I should have made this in bold letters because this is facts. It's the same thing as the world likes to call it kind of karma, right? It's called a consequence, right? So the deceiver, once again, eventually experiences the same kind of deception he once practiced. Again, this does not mean the Most High is taking revenge. Rather, Scripture often demonstrates the principle that what we sow eventually returns to us. So Jacob's actions become a painful lesson later in his own life. Ouch. And we're going to see how much it really pains him, right? So the lie before Isaac. Jacob repeatedly lies, "I am Esau." Even more concerning, he invokes the name of the Most High to explain his success, which is what I quoted earlier. Isaac is suspicious. The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. Isaac senses something is wrong. Yet because he relies on physical evidence rather than spiritual discernment, he is deceived. It happens to all of us, right? So the chapter repeatedly contrasts what Isaac hears, what Isaac feels, what Isaac smells. His natural senses override spiritual understanding. So again, the flesh is very activated in this case. Verses 28 through 29 is what I meant here, not 19. The covenant blessing. Isaac blesses Jacob with prosperity, the dew of heaven, a symbol of abundance and fruitfulness. Dominion, people serve thee. This echoes the prophecy given before birth that the elder would serve the younger. The covenant protection. Cursed be everyone that curses thee, and blessed be he that blesses thee. I just realized I copy pasted from the KJV, but it's okay. This directly echoes the promise given to Abraham in Genesis 12:3. So later, this same language appears in Numbers 24:9 when Balaam applies it to Israel. In Tobit 13:12, the blessing expands to Jerusalem, and the promise given to Abraham, then Jacob, ultimately becomes the inheritance of the covenant people. Very interesting connections there. Now, verses 30 to 38 is about Esau's bitter cry. And I thought this image was very representative, like tearing his garments. When Esau arrives, the deception is exposed. Isaac trembles violently. He suddenly realizes that despite his intentions, the blessing has gone exactly where the Most High intended. Esau cries, "Hast thou but one blessing, my father?" In Hebrews 12 later uses Esau as a warning, not because he was imperfect, but because he despised sacred things when he had them. And that is key, because clearly we saw that Jacob was just as imperfect, right? Years earlier, he willingly sold his birthright. Now he desperately wants the blessing connected to it. So many want the benefits of covenant without valuing the covenant itself. And that's where the true thing lies, right? Esau's tears cannot recover what he previously treated lightly. And that's a mistake that many of us make, by the way, and many believers today make. They want the covenant blessings and benefits, but they don't want the covenant itself and the sacrifice and the wilderness that comes along with it. Verse 33, Isaac recognizes the sovereignty of the Most High. Isaac declares, "And he shall be blessed." This is a turning point. At last, Isaac submits. He recognizes that the blessing cannot be reversed. Numbers 23:20 says he has blessed and I cannot reverse it. Romans 11:29 echoes this as well. We already spoke about this. The purpose of the Most High always stands. Now, verses 39 through 40, Esau receives a lesser blessing. His descendants become Edom. And this is the little map I was telling you about, sister, before, that it is believed that they are in around the Middle East, right? But then again, not sure about exactly where they are. For a time, Edom serves Israel, fulfilling the prophecy of Genesis 25:23. Later, Edom gains periods of independence, as we saw in 2 Kings 8:20-22. Obadiah, which is a prophet, eventually prophesies judgment against Edom because of its hostility towards Jacob's descendants. And this is still in place, by the way. The struggle between the brothers becomes a struggle between nations, as prophesied from the very beginning. Nothing new under the sun. So the birth of a long family conflict, we see it in verses 41 through 45. Esau vows to kill Jacob. This moment begins a conflict that echoes through generations. Amos 1:11 later recalls Edom's perpetual anger against his brother. Obadiah condemns Edom's violence toward Israel. What began as rivalry in the womb becomes national hostility. Rebekah fears losing both of her sons in one day. This concern resembles the woman of Tekoa's plea in 2 Samuel 14:7, as we read. Both mothers desperately trying to prevent complete family destruction. Ironically, Rebekah sends Jacob away for safety and never appears to see him again. The deception achieves the blessings but fractures the family. Verse 46 is Rebekah's final appeal. Rebekah uses Esau's Hittite wives as a reason to send Jacob away. Just as Abraham sought a covenant wife for Isaac, Jacob must not marry among the Canaanites. Even through family dysfunction, the covenant line remains protected, so the Most High continues preserving his promise. And that was the whole point, right, of them not marrying outside of their bloodline, which Esau, I once again despised. So in a nutshell, Genesis 27 is not ultimately a story about Jacob outsmarting Esau. It is a story about the Most High accomplishing his purpose through deeply flawed people. And that's the whole point. Isaac tried to elevate Esau. Rebekah manipulated events, and Jacob lied. Esau despised what was sacred until it was gone. Yet above all the human failure stands the sovereignty of our Most High. The blessing went exactly where heaven had declared it would go. At the same time, the chapter warns us that even when the promises of the Most High are certain, impatience and manipulation can bring unnecessary pain and prolong the process as well, right? Jacob receives the blessing, but he immediately loses the comfort of home, is forced into exile, and begins a difficult journey that will transform him from a deceiver into Israel. And that's why process is always necessary, by the way. So Genesis 27 therefore prepares us for the next stage of Jacob's life, which we're going to be studying in the chapters to come. The blessing has been secured, but the man who received it still needs to be changed. The covenant continues, yet the Most High is not only building a nation, he is shaping the character of the one through whom that nation will come. And that's exactly what he begins to do in the heart of Jacob, which is later Israel. So I hope this brought further understanding on the story of not only Isaac and the blessing to Jacob and Esau, but in Israel and us as a people as a whole, as we continue to connect the dots of who we are, why we are here, and where we are headed. And I pray that this continues building you, edifying you, and once again, transforming your heart to becoming that pure heart, as close as possible as we can be to our Creator, right? Through His grace and through His holiness. So once again, thank you for breaking bread with us. May this truly impact you in ways that I cannot even express in words and fathom. So have a blessed evening, and I'll see you actually in 2 weeks. So good night and shalom.